institutions that are independent, that operate independently. That independence is being attacked in India. So there is one big mother institution called the RSS that is penetrating all Indian institutions. There's not a single one that is not under attack, and it's systematically done. And you can, the judiciary, the press, the bureaucracy, election commission, every single institution is systematically being filled by people who have a particular ideology and belong to.
There was one blot on it. I don't know how you feel about that, 1975 to 77, the emergency, but that was 2 years, it's gone. I'm very curious how you look back and think of that.
I think that was a mistake. Absolutely, that was a mistake. And my grandmother said it. The RSS is doing something fundamentally different. They're actually filling the institutions with their people. So look, even if we defeat the BJP in an election, we are not going to get rid of their people in the institutional structure. Our Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, just before he was overthrown, had a conversation with me. He says, listen, my senior bureaucrats won't listen. They're RSS people. I tell them to do something, they don't do it. So it's fundamentally different what's going on.
Rahul Gandhi, welcome. Welcome to Cornell campus. Wish we could have done it in person welcome, but that is not allowed for. So welcome to our campus.
Thank you.
I have to say that I so seldom do political conversations, though this time it is going to be an informal university-style conversation. I was wondering what the reaction would be, but generally, it's been so positive. People writing in to me, wanting to hear, and generally on a high that it gives me a high that we are doing this event. I want to, we will range over a set of topics. It's billed as a conversation, but the Cornell faculty and students, if they have to hear me yet again for too long, they will switch off and go. So I'm going to push most of the conversation to you. I want to begin by talking a little bit about democracy. As was just now pointed out in the introductory remarks, this is a matter of global concern, of concern in India as well, where you're sitting. People all over are pointing out that democracy is eroding. The sort of space that we had of speech, of media, of public debate, that is getting cramped and voices are getting muzzled. You know, several years ago, 7-8 years ago, a former president of Cornell, Hunter Rawlings, had told me something which was stuck in my head. We were celebrating democracy, freedom of speech, and Hunter said, you know, I feel that India is among the world's top 1 or 2 countries in terms of freedom of speech, the space for public debate, open criticism. And, you know, coming from an American, I mean, Americans do take pride in America's open space. To say that India is right at the top made me feel very good. And that was not just me. We all used to celebrate the space. Given this concern, I would like to start by bringing you in. Is this of concern to you? You are there on the ground, that voice is being muzzled, public debate. And in the end, muzzling debate has a fallout on the economy, on how the country is doing in general. We will come back to the economy. I'm an economist. I will push you a bit into that later on. But on democracy, I want your words. What's happening? Is there hope? How do you feel about the situation in India?
I mean, of course, there's hope. But it's much deeper than muzzling debate. Muzzling debate is a symptom, it's one element of it. Modern democracies function because there is an institutional balance in a country. institutions that are independent, that operate independently. That independence is being attacked in India. So there is one big mother institution called the RSS that is penetrating all Indian institutions. There's not a single one that is not under attack, and it's systematically done. And you can, the judiciary, the press, the bureaucracy, election commission, every single institution is systematically being filled by people who have a particular ideology and belong to a certain institution. So that's that I would not say eroding, I would say strangling. And that is what is happening. As a politician, I didn't really appreciate this, 5-7 years ago. But as a politician, I actually can only do my job if I have institutional support. I get support from the judiciary. I get support from the election commission. I get support from a whole number of institutions that actually protect the conversation, the debate. If I don't have that support, I literally can't do my job. And frankly, I didn't realize how profound this is until I'm actually faced with it. I'll give you examples. I mean, in debates in Parliament, the mic is shut off. I mean, that's the extent of it, right? So we are not allowed to speak in Parliament. We don't have recourse with the courts. We are sort of having the RSS BJP combine has this massive financial advantage, 10:1, 20:1 advantage. Businesses are told, listen, you cannot support the opposition. So it's a full-scale assault on the democratic space.
Yeah, and I mean that, as you're saying, one did not appreciate India's strength till the strangling happens, because 5-7 years ago, I mean, I would really see that it's such a vibrancy in the country, and gave us.
I'll just say one thing, I used to wonder. It always used to be something that I used to wonder: how does a Mubarak win an election with 97% of the vote? This was something I was always curious about. And I used to think, okay, they just pack the polling booths. Quite by coincidence, I ended up in a conference once in Egypt. They invited me. And in that conference, I was struck that in a political conference, there were judges sitting next to me. It was just shocking to me. I was like, why is this judge sitting in a political conference? And at that point, I never understood it. Right? But what was happening there was only one institution. And all other institutions were just pretend institutions captured by that one institution. And that is what we are facing today in India. There is only one institution. I mean, today, members of parliament came from Manipur. And they said, look, we have a governor there, and she just doesn't do her job. She doesn't think she's a constitutional post. She thinks she's a ideological political post. And, there's nothing we can do. We just go there and then we come back. Pondicherry, the government went. The lady who was put in charge over there, completely subverting the democratic process openly, not allowing bills to pass, not allowing stuff to move, simply because she belongs to the RSS. So that's the attack.
Yeah. I mean, if this continues, I mean, it's the loss to India. I mean, India, actually, pride is not a good thing, but this was one dimension in which we felt proud about India. And it will be sad to see if this goes. Rahul, let me bring in one critical comment about the Congress party. People very often say that there isn't enough internal democracy in there. And I do understand that actually democracy is important at a national level. that is what we want. But since the question does arise about internal democracy, I want you to say what your thoughts are. Is that a fair criticism? Is it difficult? Go ahead.
You're speaking to the person who has been pushing this stuff in the Congress party for a decade. I'm the person who pushed elections in the youth organizations, pushed elections in the student organizations, got serious beating in the press for that. I was literally crucified for doing elections, right? I was attacked by my own party people. So I'm the first person that says, look, democratic elections within parties absolutely critical. But I got a question for you. It's interesting to me that this question is not asked about any other party. Nobody asked the question, why is there no internal democracy in the BJP? No one asked the question, why is there no internal democracy in the BSP? Nobody asked the question, why is there no democracy in the Samajwadi Party? But they asked the question about the Congress. There's a reason. We're an ideological formation. We're an ideological party, and our ideology is the ideology of the Constitution. It is the ideology of equality. So yes, it is. I think it is more important for us to be democratic. And okay, if others are not, well, that's fine. But for us, as the institution that fought for independence, that gave India the Constitution, I think it is critical that we are democratic and have democratic processes.
I mean, I'm greatly appreciative of the democratic roots that have been built in the country. There was one blot on it. I don't know how you feel about that, 1975 to 77, the emergency. But that was 2 years. It's gone. I'm very curious how you look back and think of that.
I think that was a mistake. Absolutely, there was a mistake. And my grandmother said as such.
It's fascinating you're saying this, because I mean, I did think that was dreadful. It should not have happened, the emergency. One thing very similar, what you said your grandmother said to you, with the former president of India, Pranab Mukherjee. My last conversation with him, this was a few months before he passed away, I asked him that since you were so close to Mrs. Gandhi, the calling of the election at the end of the 2 years of the emergency that Mrs. Gandhi called, was it hubris, arrogance of an authoritarian leader that I will win, I want to demonstrate that? Or was it that she was beginning to have self-doubt? I asked Pranab Mukherjee, since you were so close, and Pranab Mukherjee told me that actually I can tell you I have direct conversational evidence. She began to feel that she might lose, but she wanted to put that to test, had a fair election, and actually lost. So in some sense, having made that huge mistake, she rectified that and brought back the democratic institution. So it's sort of your brief words sort of
it was very different though.
Yeah.
And there's a fundamental difference between what happened in the emergency, and it was wrong, and what is happening now. The Congress party at no point attempted to capture India's institutional framework. And frankly, the Congress party doesn't even have that capability. Our design doesn't allow us that. Even if we want to do it, we can't do it. The RSS is doing something fundamentally different. They're actually filling the institutions with their people. So look, even if we defeat the BJP in an election, we are not going to get rid of their people in the institutional structure. Our chief minister of Madhya Pradesh, just before he was overthrown, had a conversation with me. He says, listen, my senior bureaucrats won't listen. They're RSS people. I tell them to do something, they don't do it. So it's fundamentally different what's going on. Yeah.
The question that came from the floor is that the Congress party has done poorly the previous elections, etc. And given that you talked about imagination, the need to look forward rather than the past, what is your vision? Are you hopeful? Is there a vision for the Congress?
Gather the resistance. Bring together the resistance. Bring together the resistance. Gather the resistance. There is resistance across all fronts. many different types of people, many different types of ideas. Congress party has to have the humility to absorb them, has to have the flexibility to absorb them, has to have the respect to absorb them. It has to change itself, it has to transform itself to playing that role. Remember, when we started the Congress party, it was basically bringing together the resistance, right? We used to call it passive resistance in those days because we are not into the violent kind of resistance, and we still are not. So we will never do anything violently, anything aggressively, anything nastily, all polite, all nice, but we will bring together India's power, right? And so in a sense, the party has to submit itself to the Indian people. It has to open itself to the Indian people. It has to submit itself to the Indian people. And it has to be humble because it is fighting arrogance. And so that is what the Congress party has to do. And it's not an easy transformation. It's a difficult transformation. But it's in our DNA to do it. And there are a lot of people who are, not happy with what's going on. So they're there. We have to be open, we have to be affectionate, and we have to carry all these forces. I actually believe that not just the Congress party, the opposition after 2014 is no longer fighting for power. We're fighting now for India. I'm absolutely convinced.
Right.
For me, we're now fighting a battle for India. Before 2014, when we used to fight elections, we were fighting to win elections. We were fighting for power. Now that game has changed because the rules now have completely changed. We don't have the institutions to protect us. We don't have the architecture to make it see, what is India? Or what is, when you say we're going to have a constitution, what is India? It is a negotiation. India decided that we're going to have a free and fair fight for power. And that's what it did until 2014. And you mentioned there was a brief period where, emergency, where the Congress party was wrong. And I'm the first to say it. But that changed in 2014.
Right.
That is not happening anymore. There is not a free fight for power in India anymore, which means now we have to fight for India.
Rahul, very well put. Thank you very much.
By the way, I want to be positive about this because for me, right?
Yeah.
This is the best opportunity that India could have ever got to learn, to understand its weaknesses, to emerge stronger. I think it's like India has to go through the fire to transform itself. And you can never transform yourself without going through fire. So there is going to be a cost, and we're going to bear the cost, and we're going to come out on the other side, and we will be wiser, we will be nicer, we will be more compassionate. And I think we will play an important role on the planet. I think I mentioned to you China and the United States. What I didn't say there is I think making sure that those two superpowers don't go to war. I think that is something that India should take as its responsibility.
Yeah.
So India has to sort of play that global role. We after all are a bridge to both those cultures, right? We have a bridge that used to go back to China, Buddhism. We have a bridge that goes west. So we are a bridging civilization. We are an embracing civilization. So we have to become a bridging and an embracing civilization. It's going to be painful, but it will be done.
That is the kind of global ambition, that is the nature of global ambition that I really want for India as an Indian. Thank you very much. This has been the candid, non-political conversation has been just wonderful for us. I'm sure people have enjoyed, and the feedback I'm getting is very positive. And generally, I feel the mood in India is positive in the way in which you're sensing and stressing. So thank you, Sri Rahul Gandhi, for coming on our program, for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
अगर आपको हमारे वीडियोस पसंद आए तो प्लीज़ लाइक करें, सब्सक्राइब करें और शेयर करें।